On the line with us is Senator Bernie Sanders, representing the great state of Vermont in the United States Senate. Senator Sanders, welcome back to the program.
Great to be with you, Tom.
It is always great. So great having you on, Bernie. The shutdown is moving along. They slowed down traffic. Actually, they stopped traffic for a little less than an hour at LaGuardia this morning. Philadelphia, Newark are reporting delays because they don't have enough air traffic controllers. What's the latest with the shutdown? How should we be looking at this? How should we be reacting to it? What can we do?
I think there are a couple of things, Tom. Number one, our hearts should go out and we should understand the kind of fear and suffering that is now taking place among 800,000 federal employees and their children. So these are folks now who in some cases are coming into work and not getting paid, or they're not coming into work and they're not getting paid. And you got a president of the United States who precipitated this whole thing, who says, you know what, this shutdown may go on not just for weeks, but even for months. And then on top of the federal employees issue, you got a lot of contract workers. These are people who work for companies who have contracts with the federal government, often paid quite low wages. They are in the position not only of not getting paid now, but unlike federal employees, there is no guarantee that they will be paid after the shutdown ends. And we're working on that to make sure that when the shutdown ends, they do get paid. But it's at this moment, there is no guarantee. So the first thing I think we've got to understand, there are a whole lot of folks in this country who are being treated in a horrible, horrible way, forced to work without getting paid, and they have no idea how long that's going to go on. And second of all, you got all the people who need government services, whether it is from the Department of Agriculture or the Department of the Treasury. If you're concerned about the status of your tax returns, you ain't going to get the information that you need right now, as well as many, many other agencies. And then you got the whole issue of national security. You know, I was just talking to a guy today who knows a lot about this issue. And what he says is that TSA workers, the guys you see when you go into the airport, who do the security there, by and large, they are pretty low paid. And turnover, in general, is quite high. That turnover rate is going up exponentially right now. People going out and getting other jobs. The government is not hiring anybody new, which means there will be less security at the airports. And let's hope to God that nothing terrible happens as a result. Then you got the air traffic controllers, who are also in tough economic shape. And what we're seeing today is that there are delays now in airports around the country, and that will only get worse, and that's going to impact the entire economy. So we got a guy in the White House now who wants to get a wall that most Americans don't want. Certainly almost the vast majority of Americans don't want to see the government shut down over this issue, and this thing goes on. Now, having said all of that, Tom, there is some good news, I think, and that is that, as I'm sure your listeners know, yesterday we brought up a bill very close to, almost identical to a bill that was passed unanimously in the Senate before the shutdown, and we got 6 Republicans who broke away from Trump. That's a good sign, and I think many Republicans understand, many Republican senators understand that the American people are sick and tired of this Trump-initiated shutdown, and they want the government to reopen and federal employees to be paid.
Bernie, Senator, you and I have talked for years about the Koch brothers and David Koch running for president in vice president in 1980, and on a platform of basically stripping the federal government down to nothing. Yeah. And there are several, and I've been quoting some of these over the last week on the air here. There have been a number of right-wing writers in some of the more prominent, actually, high visibility, high credibility conservative publications who have suggested that what Trump is doing really has very little to do with the wall, and they're praising him for it. That this is proof of concept, that when this is all done after a month or 2 months or 3 months of having the federal government shut down, we will then be able to look back and say, we really didn't need all those interior carrier employees. We really didn't need the EPA doing that stuff. We really didn't need the FDA or the USDA. We can privatize all those things very easily now. Trump has proven that this works. There's this debate going on. Rachel Maddow was kind of insinuating last night on TV that Trump might be doing this on behalf of Putin, and obviously, damaging the United States is something that seems to be, one of his interests. So is it Putin? Is it the billionaires? I mean, what's going on?
Well, here, I think the point you're making, I wouldn't go to Putin and to Russia, but I think the point you're making is a very good point. Let us understand that what the Koch brothers and these extreme right-wing people believe is that, by and large, government is an evil. They don't believe in Social Security. They don't believe in Medicare. They don't believe in Medicaid. They don't believe in public education. That is the philosophy of these right-wing libertarians. So if your point is, and I did a little bit of writing on this, I think last week, that one of the motives, I think there are many motives for Trump's action here. I think the wall and appealing to his base certainly is one of them. But the other idea of saying that, look, we can lay off hundreds of thousands of federal employees. We can make working for the federal government extremely unattractive. What bright young person graduating college this year is going to be running to work for the federal government when you see this contempt for federal employees? So I agree with you. I think certainly part of the motive here is to move toward the privatization of essential services that have historically been done by the government and give more power to corporate interest over the lives of Americans. And I do believe that is part of what's going on.
Do you think it might backfire? Do you think that this event might be causing Americans to realize how important our federal workforce is? Or do you think that like these conservatives are suggesting in places like the National Review, that, as I recall, that people will then understand how irrelevant these federal workers are? Yeah,
well, they're not going to feel that federal employees are relevant when they can't get on a plane. Because you're not have adequately trained or the numbers of air control people that you need, or that you are not confident that when you're getting on a plane, the safety standards, the security standards are where they should be, or when you are sitting down with your hamburger tonight, that maybe that meat has not been inspected, or your salad has not been inspected. So I think in addition to all of that, I think it is clear that a Donald Trump who campaigned, as you may recall, as a friend of working people, I think the average American is going to say, you are not a friend of anybody when you treat 800,000 federal workers and many, many contract employees with a kind of contempt that you are. Imagine saying to somebody, and what we are seeing is that Trump and Wilbur Ross and these other billionaires, they have no idea what it is like for people to live paycheck to paycheck. No idea. What it is like when you are not getting paid and you got a mortgage coming up, or you got to put food on the table for your kids. What does it say when we have long-time federal employees now going to food banks in order to feed their families? So do I think that this is backfiring in general? I do. I think for a number of reasons. Number one, relatively few people in the country think you shut down the government over a wall. People, I think, are feeling very strongly about the terrible things being done to federal employees. They're not getting the services that they need. And I think increasingly they see what a cruel and irresponsible President Trump is.
Senator, I know you have to run. Just one last question. What can we do? What can people who are listening or watching this program right now do to support you in your efforts and to support the efforts of the rest, the rest of the caucus that's working so hard to try to stop this shutdown?
All right. I think the answer is really quite simple. The truth of the matter is, and the heart of this issue from a political point of view is, Tom, is the Republicans have got to, in the Congress, Republicans have got to have the guts to stand up to Trump. There was a Republican caucus yesterday where it got very heated, because not only did 6 Republicans end up standing up to Trump in their voting with us to reopen the government, but a lot more expressed anger to the Vice President Pence, who was there. And I think what listeners have got to do, the American people have got to do, is say to Mitch McConnell, Leader McConnell, bring forward the same resolution that was passed in the House, which is almost identical to the one that Mitch McConnell and every other Republican voted for before the shutdown, which would keep the government open. So all you're asking of Mitch McConnell is to vote now for what he voted on a month ago before Trump intervened with his $5.7 billion for the wall. That's not a heavy lift. I mean, that's not asking. You're asking McConnell to do today what he did 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, amen. Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator, thank you so much for dropping by today. The door is always open. Keep us up to date on how everything's going, please.
Great, Tom. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Senator. Great talking.